Hi, my name is Alex Audi, and I'm the National President of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It's an honor to congratulate you on this recognition and to say thank you for the work that you do to keep our roads safe from drunk drivers. Some people say that they generally understand the contributions law enforcement make to our communities. Others still will say that while they may not understand, they appreciate the work that you do to keep them and their families safe. I want to tell you that not only do I understand and appreciate it, I'm married to it. My husband, Zach, is a special victims detective in our home of Lexington, Kentucky. In fact, my two giant dogs are named Sheriff and Sergeant. I say this to tell you from the very beginning that when I say thank you and that I understand the work that you do, you know that I live alongside of it every single day. I came to MADD for the same reason many people do. I was run over by a drunk driver when I was 13. On July 2nd, 2010, I was sitting still on a jet ski behind my dad's house on Lake Harrington. There was a 17-foot bass boat coming under a nearby bridge, and I did what I always knew to do. I gave my mom a thumbs up to let her know I saw him coming and I wasn't going to move. The boat was headed towards my mom and my brother. He banked it to the left and never straightened up. The boat hit me from the side going over 60 miles per hour, threw me off the jet ski, went up over the jet ski. I landed face down in the water and the boat came down on top of my body. I sustained, among many other injuries, a severe traumatic brain injury classified as shaken baby syndrome, a broken neck, and the loss of my right leg. The man who ran me over had multiple prior DUI offenses. 2.5 hours after the crash, he was 3 times over legal limit. I knew soon after the crash that I wanted to be the last little girl that this ever happened to. 11 years later, I know that I wasn't. I also know that because of law enforcement efforts to get drunk drivers off of our roads and waterways, more little girls make it home. As I said before, I married into law enforcement life. I understand what it is that you do and the sacrifices that you and your families make. I also know the frustration of diligently doing your job when the laws don't always treat drunk driving like the dangerous and deadly crime that it is. I appreciate how hard it is for law enforcement to continue to take people off the water and the roads, only to see them go out and do it again. Even when it's frustrating, please know that every single moment a drunk driver spends off of our roads and off of our waterways was a moment that might have saved someone's life. Many of you see victims of drunk driving on the absolute worst days of their lives, and you don't get to see what happens after. I'm what happens after. I'm the kid you saved because you took a drunk driver off the road or off the water. Maybe you can't imagine the lives that people will lead because you were there, but I can. I hope that by hearing my story, you have the same perspective that my husband has. There's a reason we have to get drunk drivers off the roads, and it's not just because it's our job. Congratulations again on your much-deserved recognition, and thank you so much for having me.
Greetings and welcome to our 2021 Virtual Law Enforcement Recognition event. We are so happy you could join us. My name is Patricia Riera. I am the California State Executive Director for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. MADD California wishes to take this time to acknowledge distinguished individuals who change lives one day at a time. Your experiences, expertise, and dedication are invaluable resources to our business model. Therefore, it is MADD California's honor to host and recognize you today. Please accept this recognition as a small token of our appreciation for the risk you take daily to keep our roads safe from impaired drivers, and for the laws you enforce on behalf of victims as prosecutors. You are truly an essential and valuable part of the MADD family. Last year, 2020, was a very difficult year for MADD California, as I'm sure it was for most. We bravely dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic, and then we were saddened when millions of people around the country took to the streets protesting police violence and racial inequality after the death of George Floyd. The alleged accusations of racial disparities by some law enforcement disturbed us most because we know how closely MADD California works with law enforcement on a daily basis. We are always alarmed when we hear allegations of officers acting outside the policies set by agencies we work with. MADD does not condone the use of unnecessary force in any situation and counts on leadership within our partner agencies to handle these situations fairly and justly. However, despite the challenges presented in 2020, MADD staff and volunteers delivered MADD's core programs and services virtually throughout California, all of which are free of charge to the public. These volunteer-based programs include, but are not limited to, victim advocacy, underage drinking prevention programs, community engagement, and the campaign to eliminate drunk and drugged driving. At its core, MADD provides services to victims and families of drunk and drug driving crashes at no cost, successfully lobby to support stronger drunk driving laws, deliver underage drinking prevention strategies to thousands of teens, and we are single-handedly responsible for changing the apathetic culture surrounding drinking and driving. Impaired driving continues to be a leading cause of deaths and injuries in our country. We applaud you today and throughout the year for your dedication to making our roadways safer. To all the MADD California honorees, congratulations, and thank you for all you do for MADD.
Hi, my name is Natasha Thomas, and I'm the Executive Director for Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Northern California region. I want to take a moment today to honor all of our honorees and their efforts in keeping our roadways safe at our second annual Law Enforcement Recognition event virtually. Hopefully this is our last year that hold this event virtually. We'll get to see you again next year in person and honor you as we always do. We at MADD cannot do the work that we do without you on our roadways, keeping us all safe and saving lives every single day. So from myself, from MADD California, and from MADD across the nation, we want to thank you. And once again, hopefully we get to see you again next year in person where we can celebrate and honor you all. Have a great one.
Hello, I'm Dinah Becton, District Attorney for Contra Costa County, and I'm here today to talk about driving under the influence of alcohol and/or drugs. It's kind of shocking, but as we know, the numbers don't lie. Every 2 minutes, a person is involved in a drunk driving crash. Over 10,000 deaths per year. That's too many deaths, too many lives lost, too many families affected, and certainly too many families left behind. So I stand with MADD today to end impaired driving. And the work that they're doing is so very important. Not only legislation, not only work every day to stop impaired driving, MADD is also an incredible resource for victims. They provide support to victims, those who have been impacted by someone who was driving under the influence. I also want to take a moment to recognize the significance of the victim impact panels that they host. These panels bring those who are accused and prosecuted for drunk driving or driving while impaired face to face with those who have been victimized by similar actions, so that they have an opportunity to hear how their actions have actually impacted the lives of real people. And certainly, one of the most important conversations that we're having today is around teenage driving while impaired. Those who are teenagers who are driving with drugs and or alcohol in their system are certainly a danger, not only to themselves, but to others in our community. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the importance of our law enforcement partners. The patrols that they do out there in the streets every single day helps to apprehend those who might be driving under the influence and to prevent further harms to others. And they also bring cases to our office for prosecution. As prosecutors, we have a role of protecting the public safety of our communities, and we do that in a number of ways, certainly through prevention, through education and community awareness. We also talk to teens in schools. We prosecute cases, however, when we find that there's sufficient evidence to believe that a person was driving under the influence. My hope is that as a community, we can collectively agree about the danger of impaired driving. Let's all do our part to discourage our friends and discourage our families from driving while impaired. And let's support the efforts to end drunk driving. Join me as I stand with MADD California to end impaired driving. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Sherry, and I'm the commander of the California Highway Patrol in the Dublin area. We started 2020 with our annual Mothers Against Drunk Driving Candlelight Vigil. One of our invited guests was Alameda County Fire Department Captain Daniel Lycon. Daniel's brother, CHP Sergeant Steve Lycon, was killed in the line of duty in 2019 when his vehicle was impacted by a DUI driver. Sadly, in the past 3.5 years, 40% of CHP officers that were killed in the line of duty were killed by DUI drivers. At this annual memorial, none of us knew about the impact COVID-19 would have on the world. None of us knew about the challenges law enforcement would have with the pandemic, with civil unrest, with wildland fires, and just how busy 2020 would be. But I'm very proud to announce that law enforcement, that their commitment towards DUI enforcement and education was never stronger. Specifically, in the 9 Bay Area counties, California Highway Patrol officers arrested over 9,300 DUI drivers, and that contributed to a 17% decrease in DUI collisions. Our allied agency partners worked extremely hard with education and enforcement efforts. Many of our allied agency partners and CHP officers are being recognized today. And my message for you is thank you. Your efforts bring hope to the families of DUI victims. Your efforts bring hope to our communities. And we're going to continue to work together with the families of victims of DUI collisions and with Mothers Against Drunk Driving staff and volunteers. Together, we will continue to support our victims. We will continue to educate, and together we will save lives. So please join me in this pledge when we say, I stand with one MADD California to end impaired driving. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lori Pinero. I joined MADD here in the Fresno area 11 years ago after my son-in-law was killed in the line of duty by a drunk driver. I've been attending DUI checkpoints for about 10 years. In addition to handing out literature to waiting cars, I always set up a table for the officers to get something to eat and drink. I enjoy giving them a reason to take a quick break from the stress of a checkpoint. I've seen drivers who are very apologetic and embarrassed. Others are too drunk to comprehend what is happening. I've seen drivers puking on the sidewalk from the amount of alcohol that they've consumed. I've watched drivers spewing horrendous verbal abuse at officers more times than I can count. They blame everyone and everything for their situation. I've seen drivers cry when they realize that this is happening. I've also witnessed the reactions of the officers and how various situations play out. I've seen them relating to and caring about the drivers, oftentimes with compassion. I've seen them straining to maintain control when a drunk is in their face. They are empathetic, concerned, and upset when children are put at risk by the careless decisions that their own parents make. I've also seen anger and pity when a driver just doesn't care. We cannot eliminate drunk driving without all of you. You are a needed vehicle to make that happen. We value each and every one of you out there who put on the uniform and patrol our streets. It takes a special kind of person to do what you do, to take the abuse that you take, to help others who often hate you for it. You are there when tears are shed, when hope is lost, and when life slips away. We want all of you to know how grateful we are to you and for you. And we pray every day for your safety and your success out there on the streets. Thank you and stay safe out there.
4 years ago, in February 2017, my husband Kevin was killed by a drug-impaired driver. He was driving home from work, and the other driver, who was on meth, crossed the yellow line and hit him head-on. Unconscious at the scene of the crash, Kevin was airlifted to Stanford Hospital. The worst of his injuries were to his brain, and he was declared dead a day and a half later. He was only 48. Kevin was my best friend and partner for 24 years. I feel his absence every day. And I feel the loss not only for myself, but for him too. He had so much curiosity about the world and so much enthusiasm for the future. There was so much more we planned to do together, and it was taken from us. And I'm not the only one left behind. Both of our families miss him terribly. He's always on our minds, and we talk about him often. His friends, coworkers, teammates, all of them miss him so much. Kevin's lifelong personal philosophy was, how can I help? And he truly lived it. He had such a huge impact on the lives of so many people who will never be the same without him. I will always remember the kindness and compassion of the CHP officer who met with me that first night in the ER and later updated me on the charges. Eventually, when the case went to trial, he assisted the district attorney's office as the investigating officer, and I was so impressed by the deep knowledge displayed by him and the other officers who gave expert testimonies. I always felt so supported by all of the officers involved. They made me feel like they really saw Kevin as a unique and special person, not just another case. I wish what happened to my husband was a rare occurrence, but sadly, it's all too common. I know you encounter so many cases like his, and I'm in awe of how strong you are to keep going when you see it happening over and over. Each of those losses ripples out to affect so many other people, and every life you save on the road really saves countless more. Please know how much you are appreciated and valued. Your work is so important, both in stopping impaired drivers before they hurt someone, and when they do injure or kill someone, in helping prosecutors to bring them to justice. You make a difference. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Wes Morgan, and I'm your host for the 2021 Bay Area Fresno Region Law Enforcement Recognition event. I'm not a media personality. I'm retired law enforcement. I'm retired from Livermore Police Department. I retired back in 2010, and since then I'm employed by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office as an instructor at the Alameda County Sheriff's Regional Training Center. But more importantly, since 2002, I've been a volunteer for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And I truly do consider that one of the highlights of my career, being involved with such a life-saving organization. And today, they're here to recognize you in your life-saving events. I've sat out in the audience at law enforcement recognition events, and it was always my dream to be able to stand up in front of you and present you with your awards. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to present you with your award today. I'm standing here in an empty room, and we're doing this virtually. But I do hope that I will be able to present you with awards in the future, and I am so honored to be able to call your name today as we will recognize each and every one of you for the lives you've saved. Congratulations to each of you. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you to make a donation to MADD. The pandemic has hurt all nonprofits, and MADD is no different. They've taken a serious hit during the last year. On the screen, you'll see a web address and phone number. And we're going to ask you to make a small donation to help MADD. It can also be a large donation. Before we get started with today's event, I'd like to recognize those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty in the Bay Area and Fresno regions. Please join me in paying respect to these fallen heroes. Deputy Sheriff Oscar W. Rocha, Alameda County Sheriff's Office, end of watch July 23rd, 2020. Sergeant Gilbert Polanco, CDC&R, San Quentin, end of watch 8/19/2020. Sergeant Virgil L. Thomas, Richmond Police Department, end of watch August 20th, 2020. Detective Jose C. Mora, Fresno County Sheriff's Office, end of watch September 7th, 2020. Officer Angel de la Fuente, Fresno Police Department, end of watch December 28th, 2020. Lieutenant Frank Arnold, California Department of Developmental Services, end of watch January 22nd, 2021. Deputy Sheriff Frank Gonzalez Holquin III, Tulare County Sheriff's Office, end of watch January 27th, 2021. Sergeant Richard Paul Brown, Fresno Police Department, end of watch February 17th, 2021. Please join me in a moment of silence as we recognize these fallen heroes who have made the ultimate sacrifice since our last MADD recognition event. These fallen heroes will never be forgotten. And now on to our awards. First presentation will be for Rookie of the Year. These officers have 1 year or less time of service, and they're being recognized for their efforts in preventing DUI. They were nominated by a supervisor or fellow officer, and it gives me great pride in saying these names of these young, life-saving officers. From the California Highway Patrol Marin area, Officer Alejandro De Leon. From the Point Reyes National Seashore, Officer David Kopsheeper. From the Visalia Police Department, Officer Alejandro Sanchez. From the Richmond Police Department, Officer Eric Smith Jr. And from the Sunnyvale Department of Public Safety, Officer Anthony Sozio. Congratulations to each of you. Job well done. And now on to the Outstanding Service Award. These officers are being recognized for going the extra mile to make a difference and keep our roadways safe. These officers are combining training, community education, and enforcement to make a difference on our roadways. And the recipients of this year's Officer Service Awards are from the California Highway Patrol Marin area, Officer Andrew Barclay. From the Point Reyes National Seashore, Officer Julian DuPont. From the San Francisco Police Department, Officer Crispin Jones. And from the Richmond Police Department, Officer Jonathan Platzner. Again, congratulations to each and every one of you. Job well done. And now, let's announce our Century Award winners. These officers made more than 100 DUI arrests during 2020. I was blessed during my career to receive a few Century Awards. Now, 10 years after my retirement and into my 60s, they still hang above my desk, and I look at them each and every day, and I hope you do the same. Cherish these awards because it's through your hard work, your amazingly hard work, that you can make this amount of arrests. Each and every one of these arrests are a life saved. And MADD truly believes that. So again, congratulations. And here are our Century Award winners. From CHP Solano, Officer Sage Birdseye, with 109 DUI arrests. From the Fresno Police Department, Officer Samuel Sanders, 111 DUI arrests. Also from the Fresno Police Department, Officer Levon Tarakchian, 115 DUI arrests. From CHP Madera, Officer John Romo, 124 DUI arrests. And now for our top cops in the Bay Area and Fresno regions. These officers made more DUI arrests than any other law enforcement officer in their respective region. And if you pause and think for a moment, in the Bay Area and down in Fresno, there are thousands of officers, deputies, corrections officers. And these two officers, one from the Bay Area, one from Fresno, made more DUI arrests in 2020 than any other officer. And for that, they are to be congratulated. And I am honored and proud to say their names today. From the Bay Area region, CHP Solano, Officer Sage Birdseye, with 109 DUI arrests. Congratulations, Sage. And from the Fresno region, Officer John Romo, an officer with the Madera CHP. John made 124 DUI arrests during 2020. And now on to our top prosecutor. Kings County Deputy DA, Stephen Hernandez Curd, is our top prosecutor for 2021. Stephen's dedication to holding the guilty accountable and protecting the rights of victims is evident. Having successfully prosecuted several impaired driving jury trials, Stephen gained a strong interest in handling felony impaired driving and vehicular manslaughter cases vertically. With vertical prosecution, victims are able to work with the same prosecutor from the beginning through the sentencing of the offender. Stephen, on behalf of MADD, and on behalf of a retired law enforcement officer and law enforcement everywhere, thank you. We appreciate your hard work and we appreciate your dedication. Congratulations. And now on to our MADD Awards for 2020. These are the officers and their arrest numbers that they made during the calendar year of 2020. And I'd like to remind each of you that these arrests are life-saving events. And we do consider them that way at Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And I know this old retired cop does. So for the Bay Area Awards recipients, we'd like to invite you to stop by our office in Dublin. The address will be on the screen. On June 25th, where we will present you with your award at the office. So I hope to be there myself, and I would be honored to be a part of handing you your award and congratulating you. For the Fresno area, volunteers will be dropping your awards off at your respective agency. I hope you're watching this virtual event with your coworkers and with your family. And I hope everyone around you and yourself applaud when I read your name. Please believe when I say it that each and every one of your names is an honor for me to read, and I am so proud to be the one that virtually is presenting you with your awards. I know you do not make arrests for recognition, but it is MADD's honor to recognize each and every one of you for the lives you've saved. Before I start reading the names, I'd like to introduce a story to you of a local agency who went above and beyond this last Mother's Day.
Well, hi, I'm Lori Bergenstock, and I'm here today with Lieutenant Josiah Jacobson from Fairfield Police Department. Thanks for joining us.
Not a problem.
Well, I just want to talk a little bit on Mother's Day. You guys had a little bit of a twist on a DUI arrest. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, so myself and actually one of the sergeants were driving up one of our main thoroughfares, North Texas Street, and stumbled across what ended up being a minor collision. We didn't know what it was yet, and it hadn't been dispatched, but ultimately got with the parties, figured out, all right, it was a collision, and the person who would turn out to be at fault was trying to get away. Sergeant was able to go after him, get him stopped, and got everybody together and figured out what we had. And ultimately, very minor fender bender, but as the investigation continued, found out, oh, the driver who was at fault has been drinking. And so one of our patrol officers showed up, and a number of officers worked together. It was a great model of teamwork. Obviously, then it took its own little life on its own, but the officer took over the DUI investigation, determined that the individual had way too much to drink, had a BAC of 0.14, which by itself is very high, but for an event at 12:30 just after noon, really high in that scheme of things. So went through that process, got the DUI portion of the arrest done, and then at the same time while they were inventorying the vehicle, and by the driver's own statements, he's got a bunch of flowers in the back that he's delivering. He's actually a delivery driver this time for a flower shop. So kind of a twist, and then it took it a different angle there, and the officer decided, well, what are we going to do about this? And it was kind of one of those, should we deliver these flowers? Should we not? Yeah, we should. And they ran with it and ended up being about 10 bouquets. A couple of them had chocolates to various residences, and most of these were mothers that didn't know they had flowers coming yet. Some did, but I think that was what really hit home with them is, well, they're flowers and they're chocolates. We leave them here in the car. They're not going to get to their destination. They'll go bad. They're going to die off. And so real cool for them to want to take that on their own and deliver these, and ended up delivering them to a number of houses in our city of Fairfield, some to a neighboring city, and then some in the county just outside of the city.
Oh, that's pretty cool. What was the reaction when a police officer showed up in flowers?
A little bit of apprehension at first. I think one of them was in a gated community, and the officer was trying to get into the gated community, and they didn't believe him. Hey, I'm a police officer here delivering flowers, and they thought it was a scam or a prank. And then when they ultimately got to the point of, oh, this is true and legitimate, a little bit of shock and like, oh, wow. But every response we got was a little shocked, but was positive. And each mother that was getting it really thought it was cool, unexpected. One nice, very elderly lady was trying to pay the officer, and he had to explain to her, no, this isn't from us. It's already been paid for by somebody else. So great response no matter what. Great community engagement, showed what those officers are really about, but at the same time was dual purposed and dual tasked of trying to finish something off that they didn't have to do, but also doing the work that needs to be done on the DUI side portion.
Well, speaking about doing something that didn't need to be done, what did need to be done was to take the drunk driver off the road. And although this is a super cool story, and I love that your officers went above and beyond, we like to make sure people know that your officers are going above and beyond every day. And delivering flowers is huge, but keeping people safe on the road every day is huge. Just talk a little bit about the DUI part of this and what you guys do at Fairfield PD.
Yeah, we're very fortunate that this was only a minor fender bender. And I mean, that's not good in any scheme of things, but we're fortunate that's all it was. Having somebody driving down the road, very intoxicated, almost twice the legal limit, there could have been great tragedy on Mother's Day. And we were able to have a great success story and engagement with the community. That's very fortunate. But the other side of that coin that could have happened is maybe this collision didn't happen and that driver kept going down the road, and then ultimately a major crash happened and something really bad happened where someone was seriously injured or killed. And so that's the bigger side of it. On that side of it is we were able to take this drunk driver off the roadway that needed to happen, and ultimately hopefully stopped him from continuing on his path, because he did actually try to leave, and his full intent probably was to keep driving and doing his deliveries, and who knows where that would have ended.
Well, on behalf of Mothers Against Drunk Driving in the community, thank you so much for what you guys do. We thank you for taking the extra step and delivering the flowers, but we also just thank you every day for how you save lives and keep our roads safe.
No, thank you. We're glad to do it.
Job well done, Fairfield PD. That was absolutely awesome. We will begin with the Bay Area Awards, and then we'll move on to the Fresno Awards. From the Atherton Police Department, Officer Diego Romero, 6 DUI arrests. From the Broadmoor Police Department, Officer Stephen Adaya, 6 DUI arrests. From the El Cerrito Police Department, Officer Dorian Peters, 8 DUI arrests. From the Gilroy Police Department, Officer Masafumi Yamamoto, 28 DUI arrests. From the Hayward Police Department, Officer Stephen Acasos, 17 DUI arrests. And from my prior agency, the Livermore Police Department, Officer Kurt Kofer, 26 DUI arrests. From the Milpitas Police Department, Officer Lauren Wutzke, 8 DUI arrests. From the Morgan Hill Police Department, Officer Victor Benitez, 25 DUI arrests. Officer Eddie Gutierrez, 16 DUI arrests. Officer Adrian Sapien, 18 DUI arrests. From the Mountain View Police Department, Officer Kyle Einfalt, 12 DUI arrests. Officer Alexandria Riddles, 25 DUI arrests. From the Pacifica Police Department, Officer Brandon Smith, 13 DUI arrests. From the Pleasant Hill Police Department, Officer Nicholas Filippini, 7 DUI arrests. Officer Aaron Garcia, 7 DUI arrests. From the Pleasanton Police Department, Officer Katie Emmett, 17 DUI arrests. From the Presidio of Monterey Police Department, Officer Casey Murphy, 5 DUI arrests. From the Richmond Police Department, Officer Alyssa Alvarado, 32 DUI arrests. Officer Kevin Lemus, 40 DUI arrests. Officer Karel Marichek, 26 DUI arrests. Officer Hoa Nguyen, 76 DUI arrests. From the Salinas Police Department, Officer Tyler Provost, 51 DUI arrests. Officer Jonathan Tuialosega, 27 DUI arrests. From the San Bruno Police Department, Officer Scott Smith Matungal, 34 DUI arrests. From the San Francisco Police Department, Officer Ryan Buckley, 11 DUI arrests. And Officer Joshua McFall, 14 DUI arrests. From the San Ramon Police Department, Officer Jake Tippins, 4 DUI arrests. And Officer Nathan Vasquez, 4 DUI arrests. From the Sunnyvale Department of Public Safety, Officer Pedro Tostado, 9 DUI arrests. From the Watsonville Police Department, Officer Evan Olmstead, 24 DUI arrests. Now for our sheriff's offices. From the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, Dublin Police Services, Deputy Donovan Frazier, 12 DUI arrests. From the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, Deputy Richard Deschler, 26 DUI arrests. Now for our CHP Golden Gate Division. From CHP Castro Valley Office, Officer Cole Jeffrey, 42 DUI arrests. From CHP Contra Costa Office, Officer Benjamin Zachenko, 33 DUI arrests. From the CHP Dublin Office, Officer Douglas Aaron Abel, 50 DUI arrests. Officer Tanner Elson, 59 DUI arrests. Officer Abel Moran, 64 DUI arrests. Officer Matthew Peacock, 56 DUI arrests. Officer Thomas Silva, 58 DUI arrests. Officer Manveer Singh, 50 DUI arrests. Officer Michael Teague, 52 DUI arrests. From the CHP Hayward Office, Officer David Crystallinas, 55 DUI arrests. Officer Julius Muniz, 52 DUI arrests. From the CHP Marin Office, Officer Jermaine Irby, 51 DUI arrests. Officer Matthew Escato, 54 DUI arrests. From the CHP Napa Office, Officer Randy Brunson, 54 DUI arrests. From CHP Oakland Office, Officer Sean Anderson, 66 DUI arrests. Officer Anatoly Andreev, 50 DUI arrests. Officer David Arias, 50 DUI arrests. Officer Trevor Clark, 53 DUI arrests. Officer Sean Deese, 71 DUI arrests. Officer Diego Gomez, 50 DUI arrests. Officer Carl Roberts, 50 DUI arrests. Officer Samantha Thomason, 60 DUI arrests. From the CHP Redwood City Office, Officer Heidi Clayton, 64 DUI arrests. From the CHP San Francisco Office, Officer Marcelo Garcia Ortiz, 51 DUI arrests. Officer Vanessa Godoy, 50 DUI arrests. Officer Pedro Santiago, 55 DUI arrests. From CHP Santa Rosa Office, Officer Daniel Boswell, 50 DUI arrests. Officer Kenneth Giordano, 63 DUI arrests. Officer Jace Ray, 52 DUI arrests. Officer Brian Wood, 85 DUI arrests. From the CHP Solano Office, Officer Michael Bardet, 54 DUI arrests. Officer Devin Baumgartner, 91 DUI arrests. Officer Sage Birdseye, 109 DUI. Officer Daniel Butolf, 87 DUI. Officer Matthew Christ, 53 DUI. Officer Avery Davis, 67 DUI. Officer Tyler Garcia, 61 DUI. Officer Samuel Hardiman, 57 DUI. Officer Eduardo Padilla, 51 DUI. Officer Anthony Wheeler, 55 DUI. From the CHP Monterey office, Officer Terry Bainziger, 60 DUI. Officer Wesley Barnes, 55 DUI. Officer Michael Depedrini, 61 DUI. Officer Ryan McDonald, 60 DUI. Officer Isidro Murrow, 56 DUI. Officer Cole Perez, 53 DUI. Officer Peter Todd, 57 DUI. Officer Sean Turntime, 50 DUI. From CHP Santa Cruz, Officer Kawika Brady, 54 DUI. Officer David Cornelis, 51 DUI. Officer Michael Estee, 50 DUI. Officer Isaiah Jimenez, 50 DUI. Officer Joe Kummerfeld, 72 DUI. Officer Michael Matilde, 72 DUI. Officer Zachary Stephan, 63 DUI. Officer Stephen Waddell, 55 DUI. Officer Paul Wellerstick, 63 DUI. Officer Nicholas Wells, 62 DUI. And now for our Fresno Region Awards. From the Avenal Police Department, Officer Tyler Stride, 16 DUI. From the Clovis Police Department, Officer Jocelyn Mahoney, 25 DUI. From the Firebaugh Police Department, Officer Ricardo Monet, 18 DUI. Now from the Fresno Police Department, Officer Christopher Clark, 64 DUI. Officer David Donaldson, 51 DUI. Officer Dino Garcia, 83 DUI. Officer Jeffrey Hernandez, 67 DUI. Officer Kevin Jones, 85 DUI. Officer Dominic Morini, 73 DUI. Officer Antonio Nieto, 82 DUI. Officer Brian Patterson, 66 DUI. And Officer Samuel Sanders, 111 DUI. Officer Levon Tarakian, 115 DUI. Officer Christopher Wyant, 84 DUI. From the Huron Police Department, Officer Armando Prieto, 9 DUI. And Officer Julian Silguero, 9 DUI. From the Kerman Police Department, Officer Eric Gallegos, 15 DUI. Officer Samuel Jalango, 14 DUI. Officer Dale Mum, 21 DUI arrests. From the Lemoore Police Department, Officer Brandon Gresham, 34 DUI arrests. From the Merced Police Department, Officer Eduardo Chavez, 49 DUI arrests. From the Parlier Police Department, Officer Dermujan J. Bustos, 26 DUI arrests. From the Reedley Police Department, Officer Victor Perez, 12 DUI arrests. From the Sanger Police Department, Officer Sergio Arguello, 16 DUI arrests. From the Selma Police Department, Officer Dwayne McPherson, 14 DUI arrests. From the Tulare Police Department, Officer Alex Veracruz, 23 DUI arrests. And Officer Eric Wilson, 23 DUI arrests. From the Visalia Police Department, Officer Chris Fernandez, 26 DUI arrests. And Officer Daniel Gonzalez, 56 DUI arrests. Now from our Sheriff's Office. From the Fresno County Sheriff's Office, Deputy Christopher Quinn, 34 DUI arrests. From Cal State University, from the Fresno State Police Department, Officer Yesenia Hernandez, 2 DUI arrests. Now for our CHP offices. CHP Central Inland Division. From CHP Coalinga Office, Officer Hugo Solario, 62 DUI arrests. From CHP Fresno Office, Officer Jaime Andrade, 44 DUI arrests. Officer Joshua Braun, 75 DUI arrests. Officer Alex Bryant, 90 DUI arrests. Officer Jaime Drain, 80 DUI arrests. Officer Samuel Escueda, 67 DUI arrests. Officer Johnny Fisher, 59 DUI arrests. Officer Jack Godfrey, 54 DUI arrests. Officer Gary Gray, 59 DUI arrests. Officer Herb Kellogg, 50 DUI arrests. Officer Calderon Lazaro, 59 DUI arrests. Officer Tyler Looper, 78 DUI arrests. Officer John Ramos, 69 DUI arrests. Officer Jason Smith, 59 DUI arrests. Officer Cord Spencer, 67 DUI arrests. Officer Jason Steinhauer, 65 DUI arrests. Officer Corey Walzak, 58 DUI arrests. From the CHP Hanford office, Officer Jonathan Yale, 45 DUI arrests. From the CHP Madera office, Officer Jose Herrera, 90 DUI arrests. Officer Dustin McCaslin, 64 DUI arrests. Officer John Romo, 124 DUI arrests. From CHP Oakhurst office, Officer Charles Culkin, 30 DUI arrests. And on behalf of Mothers Against Drunk Driving and the thousands of MADD volunteers and the motoring public, thank you for a job well done. I'd like to remind those of you from the Bay Area region that on June 25th, you can pick up your award at the Dublin office of MADD. The address will be on the screen. I hope to be there myself, and I hope to be able to hand you your award on June 25th. For the Fresno region, volunteers will be dropping your awards off at each of your respective agencies. I'd like to remind each of you and ask each of you to make a small donation to Mothers Against Drunk Driving. They've been hit hard during the pandemic. They need your help. Speaking of help, I'd like to take this time to thank our sponsors, the businesses out here that make this all possible. MADD has been here with us for 41 years this year, and it would not have been possible without the help from our many, many sponsors. So again, thank you. I'd also like to thank the volunteers. I've had the opportunity to work with many of them over the years. Many are my close friends and some of the greatest people I know. I know how hard you work, and I'm here today to personally thank you, each and every one of the volunteers across the country. Thank you for what you do. You make this all possible, and you too are saving lives. So with that, I'll see you next year. Hopefully in person. No, in fact, I'll promise you, I'll see you next year in person, in a room where I can call your name and you can step forward and collect your award. Keep it up. Keep up the hard work, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, first responders, for all you do for us and our communities. We really appreciate it.
On behalf of all us victims, thank you so much for all that you do.
For all your hard work in helping us save lives, thank you.
On behalf of my family and each of the countless individuals whose lives you have saved and will save, thank you from the bottom of my heart.